welcome to Pet Pals. I'm Bethany Davidson, and Sean Snyder, our volunteer coordinator, and I have another all-dog show for you today. Our dog population, as soon as a couple get adopted, more roll in. So we're consistently having a large number of adoptable dogs for people who are looking to do that. And this is a great time of year to do that. You can have them out, your kids, especially if you have teenagers, are home more to help with potty training and their routine. If you're looking to add canines to your household, definitely check in. Obviously, we want to make sure everybody's making appointments, and you can do that by going to visit fcac.as.me. The first dog we have for you today is a great size. He's about 45 pounds, and his name is Hudson, and he's one of our terrier mixes, and he's like our greeter dog right now. He's in that very first kennel, kind of letting everybody know, like, hey, I'm an awesome dog, check me out, and then meet my other awesome dogs down the road, kind of setting everybody up for great expectations there. He is, a lot of people might say he's brown, but he's actually red. He's a red and white terrier mix, and he's got great little freckles on his nose, and tons of great qualities if you're looking through his behavior assessment. He walks really nicely on a leash. He jumps pretty nicely and rides pretty nicely in the car, because Sean and I took him to the radio the other day. He does pretty well in unfamiliar environments with strangers, not really any issues there. As you can see, he is a lover of toys, and what I've seen in his kennel is that he doesn't actually destroy them. Many of our terrier mixes especially will go through a soft toy in about 30 seconds, and he has had one in there for several days. So he's good with his toys. He really enjoys them. As you can see, he can sit and relax and play on his own. Takes treats nicely. He's very food motivated, so easy to train. But just, a great overall dog who's really fun, and the volunteers seem to be enjoying him. And he's a great dog for the new volunteers to interact with because he's so easy.
So Hudson came in with Huxley, the next dog we'll feature, and originally we had them housed together, but now we have them separated. Why is that?
So these guys definitely, they're the same age, they appear to be brothers, they're similar in color, and they arrived at the same time, and they were housed together. But what often happens with larger dogs, we've seen it here before, even though they get along really well in a home environment, when they're in a smaller space like the kennel, they just can't get away from each other. It's like, living with your entire family in a one-bedroom condo. Sometimes it just doesn't work really well. They're living in a studio apartment, and there's two of them, and they just can't get away from each other. So they were having some squabbles, some bickering, and for everybody's safety, we separated them. But it's not a reflection of how they do with other dogs. They both do really well with other dogs in their behavior assessment, and it's something where we would even let them walk together and maybe even play together. It's just living in a small kennel wasn't great. So these guys are not bonded or anything like that, so they can be adopted separately. But still, as is with the case with any of our dogs, even though we know they do well, if you have an existing dog, you want to make sure that you bring them in, do that meet and greet, so we can kind of tell if personalities are going to mesh and how that's going to be in a home environment. Again, if you're interested in Hudson here, he's a 4 to 5 year old terrier mix, and you can set an appointment up to meet him by going to visit fcac.as.me. As we mentioned earlier, this is Huxley, and he came in with Hudson. They are the same age. We're assuming they're brothers. They have very similar looks, very similar coloring, except for Huxley here has more of a brindle pattern to his coat, and he's a little bit larger. He's about 10 pounds heavier than Hudson, so if you're looking for something a little bit bigger but similar in temperament, this guy is a good option. He is equally as playful, as affectionate, as confident. He has the same great qualities. Both of them, though, could use a little work on things like house training. A lot of shelter dogs need, owners who are committed to at least doing remedial house training, which is something that he would do well with. He has absolutely zero issues with, letting people take away his food, although he's super excited that he knows Sean has the good stuff. Those pepperonis are way better than kibble, so he's very excited about it, very playful. Loves affection, definitely displaying that here for us. Great body language. He, as we mentioned earlier, does great with other dogs, just couldn't live in that, small space with Hudson. it is even noted in here that he loves his belly rubbed, and he's definitely showing that today. So he's letting everybody know, I really, I love that. I want attention, I want affection. He's easy to walk, which is a quality that a lot of people are looking for, especially in a dog that's a little bit larger. He weighs in at just under 60 pounds at like 58.5. So it's a good thing that he does walk so nicely. It makes it so that people of varying sizes and strength levels could still make him part of their family.
So Hudson and Huxley have similar temperaments. However, Hudson is recommended for kids of any age, where Huxley's recommended for older children. Why is that?
So when he came in, they noticed that he was a little bit head shy, meaning that he would balk at kind of people touching near his head and things like that. And often younger kids don't have the ability to read that body language information. But then he was vet checked, and we learned that he has an ear infection. So that could also be the cause of that. So once that ear infection is cleared up, that might be something that gets reevaluated. But right now, that's just the recommendation. And when we're looking at those things, if you have a household with kids who are used to dogs of this size and can respect their boundaries, then the age recommendations aren't as strict, kind of, if you will. But if you know that your kids definitely aren't respecting the boundaries with the dog that they already know, then maybe a dog who may be a little bit head shy isn't the best one to add to your family. But again, once his ear infection is all cleared up, that might get reevaluated, and he might not have an issue with people messing with his head and things like that. So anytime you're noticing any behavioral changes in your pet, you want to check and make sure that there's not a medical cause for that, because often pain can affect their behavior, which might be what's happening here with that head shy behavior with Huxley. If you think that Huxley is going to be the perfect addition to your household and you would like to meet him, again, you go to visitfcac.as.me to book your appointment. Our next guest is Boulder, and he's rolling around like a boulder a little bit. That's not how he acquired that name, but it seems pretty fitting. He'll just jump up and then just roll right down onto the floor. And he's probably the youngest dog that we have on the floor right now. He's about 5 to 7 months old, and he is a bundle of energy. And like most dogs his age, making their way between puppyhood and adolescent dog, he has a lot of things to work on. Things that you would have to work on if you got a puppy from a breeder, So it's not just that he's a shelter dog. He needs to work on his house training, obviously. He needs to work on some impulse control, right? But he has a lot of other really great qualities. He's easy to walk. He walks pretty nicely on his leash. He's very friendly, obviously. He's not afraid to be in a new place. He's never been in this room before. He's never met the video services crew. He doesn't seem to care. He's jumping right into Sean's lap, and I don't know that he's met you before either. He's very social, and he is, again, treat motivated, which is going to make those trainings and things like that a little bit easier. And he does seem to, from my experience, pick up on things pretty quickly. But definitely, making sure that he's getting all of the training that he needs so that he can be a good canine citizen.
So his behavior assessment says that he's jumpy and he's very excitable, which, keeping paws on the ground is a desirable behavior for most owners. So what's the best way to train that?
So especially when you're standing, I noticed when I was taking his picture, I'm standing in his kennel and he's jumping up. And that's what a lot of dogs do when they greet people. They like to jump up. And the general recommendation is, it's hard to do in this setting, obviously, on the show, but is to turn your back to them and ignore them. You're not going to talk to them. You're not going to touch them in any way, not make any eye contact, because, I guess a good analogy is like parenting, right? Sometimes negative attention is good for kids, and they'll act out because they want your attention. And so even if you're, telling them to get off or pushing them off even, not just petting them, but if you're pushing them away, then they're getting some sort of reinforcement for that behavior. But obviously, if you're leaning in and petting them and rubbing them, they're like, oh, all the good things happen. So then they're definitely getting reinforced. So kind of ignoring the behavior can make it go away. And I definitely noticed when I was taking his picture, it can be time consuming, but he was definitely starting to get it. And at the end of, the 15 minutes that I was standing in his kennel, he was sitting pretty nicely for me. He wasn't jumping up as much. And because he can sit You know, really working on that to making that sit a solid thing, and then just teaching him the say please protocol, which basically means that he has to sit when he greets somebody, he has to sit when you give him his food, he has to sit when he gets his leash on, so that can kind of help him learn that all good things come to him when he's doing his nice, calm, quiet behavior, so that he wants to continue to do that, and kind of helps with that impulse control. And that's something that we recommend to everybody, whether it's a young dog like this or an older dog like Hudson or Huxley, when we're doing our adoption interview. So just something that's pretty common that he has to work on, but it's usually a pretty easy fix with some consistency. If you are interested in working on all of those good basics to make Boulder a good canine citizen, you can schedule your appointment to meet him by going to visitfcac.as.me. Our next guest is a little bit older, 5 to 6 years old. This is Evan. He came in as a stray, and he's doing a little bit of a 180 on us. He walked in the door super excited and tail wagging, happy, and then he saw the camera crew, and now he's feeling a little bit of stage fright. So this isn't necessarily an accurate representation of how Evan would behave, but you know, he is a dog that's been with us for a while. We needed to move him around a little bit and give him some time to settle in. But he's doing really well at this point. You know, when I walk up to him, he's very friendly in the kennel. He takes treats so gently, which is something that it's really nice. You know, we have some dogs that are really great dogs, like Saul, for example. You give him a treat, he's like he's a barracuda, right? But when you give Evan a treat, he takes it so nicely and he sits politely. And he's just really cute. There's like a whole row of dogs back there that are like this color. So it's, you know, Evan and Abraham and Tanner, and they all have different kind of floppy-eared things going on. So it's just a really cute row of dogs back there. You know, he is a little bit older, but and he's very calm in his kennel, but he does pull, so he does need to work on, you know, some polite leash walking, things like that are not uncommon for dogs of this type and energy size. And it's pretty easy with food motivated dogs to kind of, you know, help work on those things, and usually only takes a little bit of consistency, you know, a nice, you know, week's worth of, you know, following those protocols, probably fix that problem relatively quickly. Doesn't really have any issues with food aggression. You know, toys seem to be his big thing. He's not showing it now, but Evan loves some toys.
So Evan is fairly calm, relaxed, as you were stating. However, if you look at his behavior report or our documentation, it says that we're recommending him for older kids or teenagers. Why is that?
So a couple of things. Number one, I mentioned that Evan really loves toys. He definitely doesn't always want to give up his toys. You know, a little bit of like a resource guarding tendency there. He will destroy them also, so be mindful of that. He will destroy a toy very quickly, but he doesn't always want to give them up. So we're working with him on trades so that he'll trade a toy for food. But also, like, if he knows that there's a toy present, sometimes he's really focused on, they had a toy out in the play yard and then it went inside, and he just kept watching the window because he knew that the toy had gone inside. So those types of things. And he also has a relatively rough play style with other dogs. So we don't want young kids kind of getting caught up in those mixes. We want to make sure that the kids who are walking the dog know how to read those situations, and you know, make sure that he's going to be behaving appropriately, and that they can, you know, handle the leash and stuff like that. And as you can see, he's starting to warm up back to you know, his normal self of I'm going to destroy the stuffy. So at the end here, you guys get to see a little bit of the real Evan. If you want to see more of the real Evan, you have to make an appointment to do that and go to visitfcac.as.me to set that up. Appointments are available 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. For our potential adopters out there who are looking for something a little bit smaller, we introduce you to Goliath. He weighs in at a whopping 8.7 pounds, and he was just processed yesterday, so that's, you know, his current weight. He is a Yorkie mix, and he came to us as a stray. He was pretty matted when he came in, so yesterday, you know, our processing team did their best to kind of shave all of those mats down and things like that. It's really important when you're getting a dog like this breed or similar, understanding that they have grooming maintenance. You know, they need to be groomed on a regular basis, and it's not just an aesthetic thing; it's for their health. You can see, like, if you were looking closely at them, spots they've had to shave down like right to the skin, because those mats are going right to the skin, and that can create pain and sores, and it's just unhealthy from a cleanliness standpoint. So it's really important to make sure that if you're taking on a dog that does have grooming needs, that you're able to do that, whether you're doing it yourself or you have the financial means to have somebody else do it, because it's incredibly important for their overall well-being. In terms of his behavior assessment, he's been keeping his kennel really clean, which is not something we often see in a lot of shelter dogs. So he's not indiscriminately peeing in his bed or anything like that. He's very friendly, no issues, no reactions to walking past other dogs. He's easy to walk. He's only 8 pounds. He's not pulling you very far. He's no issues with food aggression. Wasn't really interested in toys, but is enjoys touch and petting and things like that. But he is recommended for older children. And we're saying older children, we're not necessarily talking about teenagers. We're just saying, maybe not toddlers, preschool age kids, things like that. Because we want to make sure that he's, number one, safe, right? They're not loving him too much. He does have a couple of issues that might not make him as suitable for those age children.
So on his behavior assessment, there's a lot of great things that are pointed out, but there are a few things that potential adopters should take note of.
Yes.
What are a few of those things?
So, we mentioned that he had to be shaved, and in doing so, we learned that vet restraint is not his friend. He's comfortable sitting on your lap and being held and, being gently picked up, but vet restraint is more pressure, and you're kind of pinning them down and really restricting their movement, and he has a very short fuse for that, and as a result of doing that, they had to muzzle him to shave him so that he wouldn't be a potential bite risk and things like that. And that's part of why we're looking for older children, kids who can understand that. He doesn't want to be your cuddle buddy and have you lay on him. That's a more firm pressure that he may not like, which could lead to, if you're not respecting his body language and moving, him potentially biting you. So those are kind of the reasons that we're making those decisions. But otherwise, if you're not doing that extreme pressure, he's perfectly great dog, no issues. So if you think that he's going to be the right fit for your family, or if you've been looking for a smaller dog, definitely come in, because small dogs tend to go very, very quickly here. Before you make that appointment to visit, you may want to give us a call and see if he's still available, and whether or not somebody else has already snatched him up. And the way to do that is to call our main office number, and that's going to be 301-600-1546. The last dog that we have for you today is the only female dog on our show, and this is Cinnamon, and she's, of the dogs that we featured, she's the one that's been here for longest, but because she's a little bit shyer and nervous at first, definitely wanted to give her a little bit of time to settle in before coming into this type of situation, because the cameras can be pretty scary, and she definitely showed that she was a little nervous when she first walked in, but she's starting to settle in even now. When Cinnamon first came in, she came in as a stray, but as sometimes happens, more information develops. We initially named her Celeste, but then some people came forward saying, yes, I know this dog, this is not actually her name is Cinnamon, so we went ahead and changed that. There's also been some discrepancies about her age. We were estimating that she was somewhere between 2 and 3 years old originally. This person's saying that she's more like 1 to 2 with a birth date from last year, 2 years ago in December. So she's about 1.5 years now. So there are some discrepancies in some places. We haven't quite fixed all of the paperwork yet. But definitely, an adolescent, dog. And she is a dog that we've, starting to see some changes in her. She's starting to settle in. But she's definitely going to need a family that's very patient and is going to be willing to understand that she needs some time to warm up to new people, places, things. She needs to learn that the world isn't scary. Sometimes people forget how important it is to socialize our dogs when they're young, so that they learn that the world is an awesome place and that it means good things. And Cinnamon is still learning some of that as she's continuing to grow and during her time in this facility.
So as you mentioned, some of her paperwork says that she's shy and hesitant around new folks. But when I went and got her, she was kind of at the front, ready to go. Why do you think the difference there?
So she's been here since the end of February, so she's starting to settle in, and her paperwork is reflective of how she was when she first arrived. And we're hopefully going to do another behavior assessment so that we and all of our potential adopters can track her progress. But this just goes to show that those assessments are, as we often say, a snapshot in time. They're not necessarily indicative of how the animals are going to behave long-term or lifelong. But it is a good indicator to say, this is how Cinnamon behaved when she was in a new environment that she thought was scary. And so even though homes are often far less stressful than a shelter environment, it's still a new place. After a while, this becomes home. It's a safe place. So it may be a good indicator of how she might behave in your new home when you get her home, because it is, again, going to be new and scary. So all of those things can be very helpful. And if you're reading through the assessment when you're visiting and you're noticing some changes, talk to the staff and volunteers, because they can kind of explain, this was how she used to be, but now we're seeing this behavior. We try to document that as much as possible, and you can definitely see in her documentation some changes in progress being made. But she still has a ways to go, as most of our shy dogs do. If you're committed to helping Cinnamon here learn that the world is an awesome place and it's not scary, you can do so start that process by booking that appointment at visitfcac.as.me. We hope that you enjoyed meeting all of our adoptable dogs here today. For all of you cat lovers, hopefully next episode we'll have some more cats on the floor. Spring is here. Kittens are going to be beginning to come in, and we'll have some more of those to showcase for you in the near future.